Hard-hit Florida is suffering through the aftermath of Hurricane Ian, but for the most part, not in the dark and with cool air. It's far different from the days and months after Hurricanes Laura and Ida here. Dr. Craig Greene of Baton Rouge is an orthopedic surgeon and also a public service commissioner. So I stopped by his office to talk about how recovery can look different here.
How can we do better?
That's a question Dr. Craig Greene of Baton Rouge is asking all around the state in his role as one of Louisiana's public service commissioners.
My thought is, how do we move the needle? And if you look at Louisiana, people in general, we're very resilient. Now, if we could only take our resilience and put it into the grid, which is what I'm trying to do. And you know what I've learned is there's a huge gap between idea and implementation. And I think a lot of times in Louisiana, particularly on the Public Service Commission, the commission, we, them, whoever, has been very reactive. And what I'm trying to do is be visionary and proactive. The three questions that grip us constantly are reliability, affordability, and sustainability. I think we should be good stewards of what we've been given to pass off to the next generation.
There are certain constants that we know will always be with us,
yes.
And one of those is hurricanes.
And electricity.
And electricity.
So, you know, if we look at what's the best possible scenario, if we had to start all over, it would probably be small stackable nuclear and underground microgrids. Well, that would be probably 100 times more expensive than what we have right now. So the real challenge is, what is the best possible that we could have in the most affordable bites over a period of time? And that's not something you think about the day after a hurricane passes. That's what you think about now.
Exactly.
And, you know, one of my favorite comments or statement quotes is, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So we could look back at our own lessons learned and not assign blame, but say, how do we do better? Look at what Florida's done, and they have made changes. So granted, we can't copy and paste everything, but we can. What lessons can we learn from them?
After multiple hurricanes pounded Florida in 2004 and 5, utility companies and their PSC made a proactive decision to harden their grid. They invested billions into stronger poles, buried power lines, and elevated substations. They, however, right now, they have 95% power restoration. But that is something that people are not happy about.
Right.
They have a beef about that. With them. That's not good enough for them. We may have had 40 or 50%, I'm thinking, right?
We would love 95%.
Yeah. Now, granted, the very hardest hit areas aren't back online yet, but those without is minute compared to what Louisianans experienced after Laura and Ida.
Human nature is to always want better. And so I think that if they can look back and compare how they did to the early 2000s, it's a high five. Sure. And yet I would expect that they're doing similar to what we're doing now, is even after 95% saying, how can we do better? What ways can we do better? I would worry about politicians that just sat on their laurels and said, no, we're good, this is fine.
And also, if you do something the same way you've always done it, and it always fails after each storm.
Insanity.
Why would you do that?
Right. And so there's a difference between storm blows through, you're knocked out, get back as soon as possible. That's rebuild. Now, a totally different subject is resiliency.
Resiliency is where Greene is putting most of his focus, because he says if we're resilient, we're better off. He is finding challenges, though, every step of the way.
I have opened a docket, that's how we study things, to assess what is Louisiana's plan for resiliency. And guess what? We don't have one. Okay. And that may be why we do so poorly.
Greene also believes Louisiana should set high standards and have companies meet them, not the other way around.
By aggregate, we're the poorest state in the union. So, and that's why we've also reached out, like Helena Morena and I wrote a letter to the president saying, look, you're printing $6 trillion. Can we have $4 billion?
Exactly. Right.
And if you're sending all this money to the Ukraine, you know, don't forget. And if my thought is, if that were happening in New Jersey, I'd be fine with the federal government doing that. That's why the federal government exists. So we're turning over every rock. And we invite the public to be part of this conversation too, and be educated on it and know what's going on. And then have input to your leaders like myself and whoever your PSC elected official is. My message to people is I'd be frustrated too. And I am frustrated. But I know that we have a lot of efforts going on that you're welcome to be a part of, to have every option on the table, to think how could it be better? And with those scenarios that we're testing, what are we not thinking of?
I talked with Energy Louisiana, and they gave us this statement. Here's a part of it. Energy is developing a similar comprehensive resilience plan to that of Florida that will seek to accelerate the hardening of our infrastructure to that higher standard at a pace that maintains affordable rates for our customers.